Hi. Hello.
What up?
This is Hot for Justice.
And this is Jaime.
And this is Jessica. And this is the screen recap edition of our podcast where we're talking about the Night Stalker, episodes 1 and 2.
Yes, and if you're watching the YouTube video of this, I promise I didn't pick my nose just now. I was just scratching it.
And that's also a really good plug to watch us on YouTube.
Thank you. I'm good at this.
So, okay, I've seen all 4 episodes.
I've only seen the first 2 because I'm a loser, but it's fine because
but
we're only talking about the first 2.
I took notes on episode 1, but I didn't take notes on episode 2, and it's been like a couple weeks since I've seen it, so you might have to carry episode 2.
It's fine.
Essentially, what's cool about this is that they just straight up, like, go into the case, talking about it from the detectives and, like, the news coverage's point of view, and they don't talk about the creep who did this at all. So we're not going to talk about him at all either.
Nah.
Until we get to the last episode, and we'll mention maybe his stupid name. That's all. Okay.
Yeah, like, there's, like, a teensy thing that's, like, a cliffhanger-y thing between episodes 2 and 3 that I will mention briefly, but that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, let's start talking about these victims, because that's really where this kind of all begins.
Yes. So actually, let's see. We're first introduced to this in LA in 1984. Right. The nostalgia of this documentary is just...
Oh, yeah. It opens up with, like, Bruce Springsteen and, like, how things are, like, you know, happy and, like, beautiful in LA. And, like, you know, it's all this, like, people that want to be stars and are coming to, like, you know, live their best life. But then shit gets real.
Yeah. So they're talking about a detective who actually worked on the Hillside Strangler case, and then he starts eventually working on this case. Mm-hmm. And then the other detective, his name's Gil Arroyo, who... Right? Is that his last name?
I think it's not that.
Gil.
Hold on.
I just have Gil. Wait.
I literally just had it up like 2 seconds ago. Carrillo.
Okay. That's close.
And Frank Salerno.
Okay. So we're introduced to like them at first, and they're talking about this. So the first murder that happens in LA is that we're introduced to, which is actually like not his first murder ever. It's just like the first one that we're kind of like here. Was the murder of Dale Okazaki, I think is how you say her name.
Yeah, Okazaki.
So she's his first victim. Essentially what happens is he approaches this house. This woman is in her garage getting like stuff out of her car, or she's just getting out of her car. And essentially what he does is, she's not paying attention because she's preoccupied. He slams his hand on the hood, scares her. She turns to look at him. He shoots her in the face, but she survives because the bullet ricochets off her keys, which is freaking insane. And so he thinks that he's killed her, goes inside, he waits, and you can, like, Gil's talking about how he's got the gun, like, kind of leveled on the countertop. Yeah. And when Dale pops her head up, because she's, like, on the floor kind of doing, like, grocery stuff.
Yeah, and she, like, hears him, and so then she, like, puts her hands on, like, the edge of the counter, and then, like, he's like, oh, this bitch is about to poke her head up.
And he shoots her in the head.
Like... Oh my god. Like, she, it was so unbeknownst to her, like, she had no idea what she was going, oh my god.
No, I mean, no, and it's actually just really, it's so sad.
Yeah, like,
she probably had no idea.
Yeah. And then, the roommate, what's her name, Maria, she's like, oh, like, I'm gonna hide out here because, like, I don't...
Yeah, she goes around to the front.
Yeah, because she's like, oh,
he's going to come back out the way he went. Yeah.
And then
he actually comes back out the front, and she's kind of just like, please don't hurt me.
She's like, yeah, like, you shot me in the head once, like, please, like, can you not do that again?
And he leaves.
Yeah. Like, what?
Which is insane. But then an hour later, he goes... So this was in Rosemead, California. He goes to Monterey Park, where he shoots Cy Leon, which she goes by Veronica.
Yeah.
I'm also probably saying her name wrong. You. He pulls her out of her car, shoots her twice. And I want to pause because we're not introduced to the first like two victims or a couple victims in the documentary. So actually his first known murder happened in San Francisco in a hotel where he was living. He raped and stabbed a 9-year-old Chinese American girl, Mei Leung, and he hangs her body from a pipe. It was not identified initially as one of his crimes, but because in 2009 they matched his DNA, they determined that it was him. They also disclosed a second suspect was probably there, but there was not enough evidence to prove like who. It's probably a good indication it was probably his cousin, because I think his cousin was like a big old perv too.
Yeah, like none of that would shock me.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
at
and
this
then
point.
in LA, 1984. So this was like June 1984. He murders Jenny Vincow, who was 79. She was found almost decapitated. His fingerprint was found on a window screen he removed to come into the apartment. And then with Maria and Dale, those are when the first serial crimes that they're like actually identifying as one person. So Dale's murder and Maria's attempted murder was March 17th, 1985. By March 27th, literally 10 days later, he goes into a home in Whittier, California, fatally shoots Vincent Zizara, 64, in the temple while he's asleep on the couch. And then he rapes and stabs the wife, Maxine Zizara. They said she had stab wounds just above her vagina, and then he removes her eyes.
Yeah, they suspect that, and they say that it's possible that she had a really good look at him or something, and that's what caused him to do that. Because I don't know if he was afraid that she would, make it or what. And I'd be able to identify him, but Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
They say that he essentially stole $40,000 in jewelry. And then he also shot her. He put her eyes in a jewelry box.
Ugh. That's
and
so fucking foul.
They find a footprint, which this is big. So
yeah.
The footprint in the flower bed and the bullets at the scene match the previous crime scene.
Yeah, because that's one thing that was consistent
was
with the other
finger,
one.
or the shoe print.
Yeah, it was like an Avia shoe, right?
And this is like, yes, and this is kind of where Gil is like, this is a serial. And people are like, no, bro, it's not. Because people had never really like, I mean, serial killers they were a thing, but they weren't.
They didn't have like the moniker that they have now.
Right. It's like, it was a pretty still like new concept then.
And nobody wanted to believe it, I'm sure, too. I mean, they'd be like, oh yeah, fuck that, not here, or whatever. Yeah. But what have you.
So that was March 27th, May 14th. He breaks into Bill and Lillian Doy's home in Monterey Park. He shoots him who shoots the husband, Bill, in the face, beats him unconscious. He actually crawls to the phone and calls 911, saving his wife's life because Ramirez, he rapes the wife and beats her as well. Mm-hmm. But the husband, unfortunately, didn't make it, the husband, Bill. Yeah. But his wife survived. And then May 29th, 2 weeks later, he, I don't know where, Monrovia, he goes and
I think it's all kind of within like an hour in the LA area.
Yeah. He breaks into Mabel Bell and Florence Nettie Ling, their home. He attacks her with a hammer, binds her, and then attacks the other woman or man. No, women. Both are women. Sorry. No,
there's a lot of couples that he attacked, so that's why.
Yeah. It's sometimes, yeah. He uses lipstick to draw a pentagram on her body.
So fucking creepy.
Yeah, he's just nasty.
Yeah.
Well,
and then also, like, this is kind of when, like, there's, like, some beginning of, like, potential, like, Satanist, like, you know, devil worship stuff. Like, I forget if it was in the first or second episode. One of the... Second. Oh, it was the first... Yeah. People... Well, no, in the first episode, actually, someone that saw Richard Ramirez at, like, a Goodwill said that he had the tattoo or the devil on his hand.
Yeah, and she saw him buying this AC/DC hat, and they talk about it in the first episode, and it's actually, like, he's identified by, like, Maria Hernandez wearing an AC/DC hat.
Yeah.
It was, like, the same day.
Yeah.
He also was seen wearing a black members only jacket. The same shoe print was found, and then they said that he had really brown stained teeth and a very disgusting stench. So that, like, witness statements were pretty consistent. And then in the documentary, I'm also looking at a timeline. It has additional, like, cases in there.
Right. We're pulling that from Refinery 29. It just has, like, they have a timeline of all of his victims. So we're just kind of intermingling these in with what the documentary shows, just because they don't go into detail about every single victim, and also not in order necessarily.
Yeah. So then they also have, I mean, this leaves out, there were child victims, and the documentary it acknowledges them, leaves most of their names out, which is understandable. They do interview one. Her name was Anastasia, I think I wrote.
Yeah, I don't remember, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, Anastasia. He comes into her room and basically, like, convinces her to go with him. She's only 6, and so she was like, well, he kind of felt familiar, so I felt okay going with him. But essentially he kidnaps her, he assaults her, sexually assaults her, and then he drops her off at a gas station and says, tell them to call 911 and tell them who you are.
That's so fucking creepy.
He did it multiple times to children, and he would let them live. And so they also thought that was a separate thing going on. There was an 8-year-old who was abducted and then raped at a construction site, and they had just poured concrete. So they have this shoe print in concrete. And this is where Gil is like, this is a serial, and this is all one person.
Right.
And people were like, bro, this is unheard of.
Popping up.
Yeah. And so finally they, like, confirm, like, okay, this is the same size shoe. It's the same shoe print. This is the same dude. And Gil, you have to give him credit because he was young, and people were like, no, bro, this is not right. And he stuck with his like, gut and was like, yeah, and he stuck with it.
Oh, yeah. And then also, when there was guns involved, it was like a 22 caliber, I believe, and they were like, oh, like, well, there's so many different 22s, like, you could never, like, isolate it down to the same, being the same gun. And sure enough, it was the same gun.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was just really funny. Like,
there was another, like, break-in where he assaulted a young boy, 11-year-old, and tied up the mom, and it's just so terrible. He's just a sicko. We've got another Mary Louise Cannon. He drives to her house, knocks her out with a lamp, and then he the crime scene photos are just gnarly.
Oh my
He
God.
slashes her throat, and then he stabs her in her throat wound.
Yeah.
Repeatedly. And then there was another woman a few days before that who had also had her throat slit, like, in the same area. Her name was Mary Cannon, and then Patty Higgins. And then there's this is literally within a few days of each other.
Yeah. Like, there's, like, 10 days, there's 5 people.
Yeah. He attacks a 16-year-old girl in her bed while she's asleep with a tire iron, and he repeatedly beat her in the head and then tried to strangle her with a telephone cord. she survives.
Yeah.
And in the hospital, she's got like, I think it said she had 42 inches of laceration and she had skull fractures. But the crime scene investigator, she is like, she works on this whole case.
Yeah.
She's like, calls Gil and she's like, you have to come look at this. They've got a shoe print in blood on the comforter.
Yeah. Fucking nuts. Like,
that was
what
incredible.
Are the odds?
And a find. Like, good for her for being diligent.
Well, yeah. And then I believe it's the next victim, Joyce Lucille Nelson, who I'm so sorry. So he rapes her. He doesn't kill her. And then he burglarizes her home. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was asked backwards. He didn't rape her. She fought back. He does kill her, but he leaves a shoe print in her face from stomping on her face so hard.
This one was really sad because they talked to her like granddaughter.
Yeah.
And her whole family, and she's talking about how, you know, she bought her own home and she was so proud and she was always a super involved grandma and she fought like hell.
Yeah, like there's all these, like, they show like some of her autopsy photos, like her nails are broken, like she has, you know, bruises all over, like she fought like a motherfucker. Like so
and then after that, he goes to another woman's home the same day, Sophie Dickman.
Yeah,
same thing.
Was
also
about,
tries
like,
to
30,
rape
45
her.
minutes away.
Steals her jewelry and tells her to swear on Satan. And then he robs her. And she survives, so she can say that that's what he was telling her. So, you know, and a lot of this time he's like driving stolen cars.
Yeah.
He's kind of traveling within this radius within Los Angeles. And he's like oftentimes hitting 2 houses in one night. Like, anyways, I don't know where it ends on episode 2, like how many victims they go through.
I don't know the exact number, but like basically that's when they say like, oh, there was over a course of 10 days 5 victims, well, like 5 murder victims, but also like attack victims.
Yeah, he's just really, I mean, and they take the time and they interview the family and they, you know, really, I feel like do the victims justice in this.
They really do, I think.
You know, and they talk about some of like, there was one daughter, I can't remember what her name was, but she found her parents because she was supposed to meet them and then they didn't show up and she thought it was really strange. It was like a weekly thing and she went to their home and she found them murdered and the crime scene photos are just...
The stuff's like unreal. Like, so, and we probably should have said this at the top. And it'll definitely be in the show notes.
Like a trigger warning.
Yeah, like they show a lot of crime scene photos. Some of them are like partially redacted, but there are a lot of crime scene photos.
They like minimally redact them,
right? Because like it's
you
definitely
can see a lot of the
they're
blood.
trying to show a point and prove that he was a monster. Like that's definitely that's what they do and achieve. So
well, I think also just the like sheer brutality of his crimes.
Right.
It's brutal. Like, yeah. So
and then,
we'll do that.
Right. And then the episode 2 kind of ends with they actually end up getting his dental what are those words? X-rays, his teeth X-rays. Richard Ramirez's.
Oh yeah. So that was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
They actually had set up like an alarm system in this.
Yeah.
They identified this dentist. Why was that? I think they figured out that he would have had like a really bad infection or something.
Yeah, so I forget which investigator it was, but one of the investigators gets a hold of this. Either it was like a bite mark or like initially that turned into like kind of like an imprint or x-ray or type of situation. And he was like, oh, I had a buddy who's a dentist. And I was like, oh, can you like unofficially tell me what you think about this?
Right.
And he was like, oh, that guy has a gnarly infection. Like he's going to have to go to a dentist soon. Or he's going to like go septic basically. And then
he was right.
The cliffhanger bit is that a dentist does do work on Ramirez. And that's one of the ways he's eventually caught.
but also
found
like
out.
a different, like he gives the name Rick, but I think
Right.
a fake last name. And so they identified the dentist, and they're like, yeah, he was in here a few days ago. Oh, no. It was, part of it was, too, they figured out who the dentist was because of the car. Remember?
Oh, you're
they,
right.
Like,
I'm sorry.
They, like, identified the car, and they held the car for fingerprints. I can't remember. They pulled him over, and he, like, bolted.
Yeah, he
And
dipset.
they thought it was really weird. So they have this car. They were like, we're going to need a fingerprint. Well, it ended up getting impounded and never touched.
Yeah.
So later the investigators go back in and they have a card for a dentist.
Yeah,
So they call this dentist and he's like, yeah, this is, I'm seeing this patient, blah, blah, blah. And so they have officers sit in the waiting room, kind of just waiting for him to come in. He doesn't come back in. And then so they outfit the dentist with like this silent alarm that he can push when this guy comes back in. And so the next time he does come in, the dentist is pushing the alarm. Well, no one comes because the alarm's not working. And so they literally just miss him. And it's like astonishing. Too, also, like, if they had printed the car,
who knows?
Granted, I'm pretty sure it was stolen.
Probably, but I mean, who knows? I mean, like, he was sloppy. I mean, I don't know. Like,
yeah. Well, and also the one of the overarching themes is the shoe. There was one of these shoes shipped to Los Angeles. One pair of these fucking shoes.
Right.
And granted, it's in the 80s. It's not as easy to track stuff. But it's like a lead they can just never pin down. They can't figure out where they were shipped or who sold them or who bought them. It was very distinct.
Insanity.
It really was. So I'll have to like refresh on that car thing because I can't remember why he got pulled over and why he bolted, but it was interesting because I don't think they necessarily knew like this is
they don't think they knew it was connected
until like a little bit later
after the fact,
or they were kind of like figuring it out. But it's very interesting, and to hear the detectives talk about it and how they're going like bit by bit and they're just feeling constantly like Gil even talks about what pressure it put on his family.
Yeah.
He was constantly working, getting called out all the time.
His wife was pissed.
She wasn't feeling safe either.
Yeah.
Who would, really? It's like he was 100%. In the news, so it's not like, I'm sure then they didn't know who it was, but I'm sure Richard Ramirez was watching and like knew who was hunting him.
Right.
There was one interview, I think it was in the first 2 episodes too, where this family, he was like a corrections officer, and he and his wife were talking about how they woke up, like she heard something in the middle of the night, and the husband got up and he had a gun and he was like going through the house and like noticed a window was open or unlocked and it hadn't been.
Oh, hell no.
And they called the cops and they found the shoe print outside of their house. Mm-hmm. And the cops are like, you are so lucky. Like, so lucky.
Yeah, because you would have been figgity fucked.
Right. If he had a weapon and he knew how to use it, maybe not. But I don't know. That's like chilling to me.
Yeah,
like that almost.
No thanks. Like,
yeah.
No thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
So,
like, if you were almost a murder victim, like, I would rather, or if I was almost a murder victim, I'd rather not know.
No. No, yeah. I would be, like, terrified to sleep for forevermore.
Yeah.
Forevermore. But it's just really interesting because I feel like when you've got that, like, instinct, you really should listen to it,
Yeah. Those weird little feelings you get, your spidey senses, they're real.
You listen to them. Absolutely. So I think that's like kind of covers the first 2 episodes. Yeah, it's a very well done documentary.
Yeah, definitely recommend it if you have a strong stomach and are cool with crime scene photos that are gory as fuck. Yeah. But that's if and only if. And if you, trigger warning. Obviously, they talk a lot about very, very brutal assaults and sexual assaults and children being raped. And if that's, don't watch it if that's triggering to you. Yep. It's triggering to anybody, but if you can't handle that, then don't watch it, because honestly, just like the wake of violence he left is
astounding.
Yeah.
So
Could not have said
we'll
it better
link this refinery timeline that we're kind of going off of too, and of course you can watch this on Netflix.
Yes, you can. And next week we will recap parts 3 and 4.
And then we will cover Cecil Hotel.
Yes. That one I think is probably going to be like 2 or 3 parts too. Because
Yeah,
that one's long.
It's a couple episodes. So.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to take off a bit? Or do we even do that on these?
I don't think we do that on these, but we can do it on our. We'll dick off on our next regular.
Excellent. I couldn't remember. I'm losing it just like you were losing it at the beginning.
It's okay. I actually feel better now. I opened their window and it did me some good. I don't know.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, on that note, we will catch you on Monday with a regular episode.
Thank y'all.
All right.
Farewell.
Toodaloo. Bye.